Today, we're talking about a Hubspot article that talks about the 6 business challenges small businesses struggle with and how to fix them, which is a bold statement. Written by Lindsay Kolowich. If you're out there,
you're calling her out
sometimes
by name.
I hope you're watching this and we all learn something from this. One, I find this an extremely biased article because it's written by a HubSpot and it's written by a tech company.
It's a HubSpot blog, isn't it?
Yeah,
or an article.
It's a HubSpot blog. But I don't know if I agree with a lot of this stuff. Because, for example, where's the elements of building your funnel and building value in your messaging and value in your and they're also talking about like how to build a buyer persona like it's something dreadfully
right.
easy when companies should ideally be going through a set of experimentation because yes, you have to go through a first initial stage of like using your best assumption coming from the industry to build out your buyer persona, but in all honesty it's like there's buyers out there that you probably don't even know about that you have to experiment on, right?
For me, it was the article it was mixed between very kind of granular level marketing stuff and what I would consider organizational stuff.
Yeah.
So hiring the right talent is not just specific to marketing, but how is that consistent with building an email list? It just seemed the article kind of went from 30,000 feet down to 10 feet in terms of the level of detail or the suggestions. So it's great. The elements were good. Yeah. I think it certainly starts the conversation, but I really wasn't quite sure when I read it what the actual takeaway was.
Yeah,
that was my honest opinion.
And I should state that we're applying this to B2B businesses because that's both of where our backgrounds really come in play. And I'm assuming that HubSpot is also writing this article for companies that are at least $1 million and above. Because yes, HubSpot's free, but let's be real, like you only really start to use a CRM when you have a good, solid base of customers to really start, and you can't really keep track of. I think my biggest dilemma with this particular article is it's the same shit every other junior marketer would say or give advice to, right? Like, no shit, you got to build an email list. No shit, you got to find customers. Like, obviously, like the life and blood. Like, if I was a mentor for like a small business, obviously I would say find customers. But like, how do you tactically go about that kind of thing? Right?
Yeah, you're right. The miss or the value would have been in being able to say, okay, find customers. Okay, so what are the options? What are the tactics, right, that you would deploy to find customers? Is it to buy a third-party list? What's the pros and cons of doing that? Would you, use other third-party kind of data sources or technologies that will help you kind of scrape email lists together and so on?
Yeah.
It doesn't give you the pros and cons, which to me would be where the value comes in. But to state, I would say the obvious of find customers, it doesn't give me anything more than what I already know.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I got asked this question on Quora recently. Not recently, probably about, when I say recently, I mean like 2 years ago. But someone asked me, it's like, oh, what's an easy way to find customers? And there's all these tech companies that were like selling on Quora and saying like, oh, you should use our product to gain more customers, or there'll be a couple consultants out there that saying like, SEO consultant would say, oh, you should probably try to work on your SEO. But the thing is, my answer was, what is your best skill set? So for example, if you're an amazing extroverted networker and you can sell like there's no tomorrow and you have the energy to do it, then go out and fucking network, right?
Yeah, events, right? Events, networking events,
exactly.
Even trade shows.
Yeah, trade shows, conferences, whatever it may be.
Let me stop you there for a second. What's your opinion on trade shows and events in terms of the value it's supposed to generate? Because we're on the topic of finding customers. Right? Yeah. So let me put you on the spot.
Okay.
And say, what's your opinion on the value, the ROI against trade shows and events?
Okay. For me, if I were to go to a networking event or a trade show, I completely suck at it. I'm not the most extroverted person as
Contrary
to this video. But I know for me personally, if I went to a networking event or if I went to a conference or trade show, I would not. I'm really bad at selling there. I'm great at like building relationships and talking to like a very small, like 2-3 people, and just really building a relationship with them. Whether or not they're the right people is a different ballgame.
But do you go? And this is what I think is the issue that I have is the objective of a trade show to actually sell, or is it actually to generate awareness? Like when you think about, we're going to talk a little bit about stages of the funnel. Is an event, a conference, what have you, is it really about trying to sell a deal, put a deal together, or is it just about creating awareness, filling the top of your funnel with potential leads or prospects, however you want to define it?
Actually, that's a good point. So I only find a value in a trade show or conference or an event, any event, if I have a booth there.
Yeah, see, I've heard opposite.
Really?
I've gone to events where you don't have a booth. You could float around the conference, like, the booths, and you can network. You can hear other, let's say, competitors, what their pitch is, what their conversation is. But it gives you more agility to be able to have the kind of ad hoc conversation. You attend a workshop, and you're sitting next to somebody, you can have that conversation versus manning a booth, for 12 hours out of the day. Yeah. So it's very expensive. Yeah. To me, that's kind of a huge consideration, is that it's very expensive to sponsor or to put up a booth at an event.
So let me say this then. Do you feel like when you go to an event, there's power in numbers? In a sense of the more people that you go with, the more of the room. Because let's face it, like if you're talking for 5 minutes, let's say a piece, right, or per person, that's a lot of your time on probably repeating the same thing, saying the same sales pitch, especially as a small business no one knows who the hell you are. Yeah. So do you feel there's power in numbers? Like if I were to hire a bunch of good-looking men and women to just go and just
I don't know. I'm sure that's a tactic. I think perhaps that's more in line with the B2C play. Yeah. Right, instead of B2B. Now, the other thing about events that you can actually get some value is meeting your customers. Right. If your customers are going, what a cost-effective way to meet a bunch of your customers in one spot, rather than doing a junket or kind of a road show to hit your key clients across North America.
I like that one. Yeah. But hands down, I think like meeting your customers face to face, and any opportunity that you get. Now let me ask you this though: do you think it's more beneficial for a company to run their own event or to attend other events?
Wow, good question. I've done both. I've kind of had that experience. I love working for a software company. I love the customer conferences because everybody. You're really driving the vibe of the floor, and so for me, I was in a fairly senior role, so I knew the vast majority of the customers that were there. So that was really fun to just kind of hang out and network. So that was cool. The other one would be the industry conferences, right? Like for Modern Marketing Experience, MME, hosted by Oracle and so on. Or even Dreamforce. Probably the extreme example, let me switch, would be Dreamforce. Like, I can't remember. I thought I saw, it was like 100,000 people came and showed up to this event. At some point, it's just too large for you to kind of navigate and be truly effective. Trying to kind of reach, have your message reach the masses. But, I don't know. I think, personally, you can drive influence with your own conference. But, again, if you're an SMB, the likelihood of hosting a fairly, significant event for your product or services, it's very expensive endeavor. So it's always this trade-off between, what's the cost going to be for what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. I think at least from my experience in events and tying back to this article, is that going back to what you mentioned about, should it be about selling on the spot or should it be about filling your top funnel? I strongly believe that it's about filling the top of your funnel. like building that initial relationship, getting that conversation going, even adding someone to LinkedIn or whatever it may be, building that relationship, driving them to, let's say, your website or whatever it may be, where they can get to know a little bit more about you, and maybe you have your own good, solid personal brand. Because ideally, you get to know a person in better detail once you meet them one to one.
Yeah.
Right? You don't there's so much going on at an event, at a networking event, a trade show. There's so much going on, so much you want to see, that no one's really going to pay 100% focus on you, no matter how good your product is. You could say you work from Apple, but when there's another huge event giving out free shit in the other corner, I'm going to go to that other goddamn corner, right? Unless I'm going to buy an Apple product from you directly on the spot, that's not going to happen.
But it's exciting, right? I think it's exciting as an attendee to go. You get caught up in the excitement. But the challenge that I've seen time and time again is that once you leave the conference, everybody's, leaves the conference with great ideas. They're going to action these once they get back to the office. But come on. The reality is, once you get back into the office, you're just in your grind, right? Yeah. You're just going through the daily grind. So it's really important if you're committed to making the investment in attending a conference and a trade show, what have you, you got to constantly be following up really right away after the conference ends.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, that excitement is gone, and then everybody's just back to the day-to-day.
Yeah.
That's what I've certainly seen.